Hello, welcome back to the podcast Journey to Well. My name is Hannah. Today, I love podcasts where I get to have a conversation about things that honestly, most people probably don't know about me. And one of those things is I sang a lot in high school. I took voice lessons. I sang opera. I was in operas. I was in my high school musicals. I was in all of my high school choirs. And today we get to have a conversation about using your voice. And I am joined with Barbara McAfee today. She's a voice coach, an author, a speaker, a performer with over 30 years of experience helping people unlock their full voice, blending practical vocal techniques and powerful tools for authentic, flexible, and unforgettable self-expression. And one of my favorite things, Barbara, we were talking right before we hit record about this conversation is it's not about being a performer or being a musician. And I think when we think music, especially using your voice, maybe it's because I am a musician or a former musician and I love singing that I always think of that, like, let's perform. But how can we tap into our voice if we don't see ourselves as a singer, if we don't see ourselves as a performer, that's not an interest of us. I think there's still such a relevant conversation to be had in using your voice and discovering your voice. And you have a really cool framework. So I'm so excited about this conversation, but thank you, first of all, for coming on. Thank you for sharing your time and your voice to come on this podcast and share your expertise and your story with our community. And I like to hand over the reins, just a little introduction of who are we going to learn from today? Who is Barbara McAfee?
Thank you so much, Hannah. It's a joy to be here. And you're right. Most people, when I say I'm a voice coach, they say, "Oh, do you teach singing?" And I'm
Yeah.
like, "What are we doing right now? We're actually talking to each other." And I have to say, if you had a voice kind of like this, I imagine you wouldn't have very many listeners to your podcast. Our voices are affecting each other all the time. In fact, your listeners probably were assessing my credibility, my likability, all kinds of stuff about me just by the sound of my voice. And we're doing that all the time. And so one of the things I have to start with when I am working with people on voice is to open a bigger frame, because it's not just talking, it's not just singing, it's the way you sound.
Mm.
And tone has so much to do with whether we're connecting or we're not connecting.
Mm.
We've all had the apology that didn't sound quite right. "I'm sorry." It's like, well, the words are correct. The tone is telling you the truth that you are not a bit sorry. You're just mad. So,
Yeah.
so I like to bring a bigger awareness to voice in general and how it connects to all aspects of our lives, our vocation, our spirituality, our relationships, our effectiveness in giving our gifts to the world. All of it hinges on voice.
Mm.
And so I feel like sort of kind of a preacher about, hey, wake up. There's all this stuff in here. Your voice wants to help you. Let's
Yeah.
help it help you.
Mm. One of the things that I do in my business that I think we probably hopefully talked about is human design. And as you're saying this, actually, I just made a really cool connection. Um, Barbara is a 4/6 emotional generator for those of you that know a little bit about human design and like learning more. But in human design, one of the things that we say is that you have human design centers, kind of like the chakra system, and all of your centers are eventually leading out to your throat energy center, or chakra, whatever you want to call it. In human design, it's energy center. And all of them, like your two head centers, lead down to your throat. All of your lower centers lead out because eventually all of that energy, whether you're talking about like your sacral center of that power and that authority and your intuition, you want that eventually to come up and out to be expressed. And that's really cool that's really um, focus of your work is allowing people to find their voice. And I watched your TED Talk, so I know like I love all of the different voices and like the examples that you give, and having that tool to work on your self-expression. You're making me laugh because one of the things I always tell my partners is whenever I have something really serious, like if I have something that has kind of been bothering me, I'll always talk to them in like this very like stern voice. And it's not necessarily how I mean for it to come out. It just it is. And I mean it's a serious conversation, but I don't want to feel like I'm like really being like aggressive towards someone when I'm talking about something serious. But you're making me laugh when you're giving some of those examples because that's what came to mind for me of like, I don't know how to fix that. So is that something that people work with you too of like their mode of tone and expression?
Yes.
Okay.
And a lot of people are looking for the perfect thing, which, guess what? The perfect voice for talking to your poodle is not a perfect voice for talking to your boss,
True.
for instance. And so, what I try to do is bring more awareness, first of all, and flexibility and choice and pleasure.
Mm.
So, most of us are living in a tiny little part of our voice that was constructed not really on purpose. I mean, those of us who have some singing or acting training, maybe we've thought about it a little bit, but most of us use this crucial thing, and I love how in the human design it confirms that truth. That you can have all these gifts around inside of you, great ideas, great instincts, creative projects, and if it can't get out to another human being, it's not going to happen. And that
Mm.
breaks my heart. I think of all the circumstances in the world that limit people giving their gifts. Maybe they're living in a war zone, or they're living in poverty, or they somehow have been hurt in a way that they can't open up their mouths and make a sound. And I've worked with a lot of those people over the years too. And they can heal. But most of us just think, well, this is just how it is. I can't do this. But those of us that do have some choices and have some privilege, uh, we could actually open up our voice in a way that would allow our gifts to come into the world. And a lot of us have the gift of bringing other people's gifts into the world. Like I think of
Mm.
myself as a midwife a lot.
I,
it's not my, your voice is not my baby, but I'll help you get it out.
yeah. Oh, I like that actually analogy. So, one of the frameworks that you built is like the five elements. So, I really want to lay that foundation because I love how you incorporate these five elements with your voice, and how you're projecting and your tone and your conversation style. So, can you introduce those to our listeners today?
Absolutely. I would love to. I've been doing this for so long and I never get tired of it. It's just
You can
like,
do it in your
woohoo,
sleep.
it's super fun. So there's a few underlying premises for this framework. And one is that we start with sound, beyond speaking, beyond singing, in the realm of sound. And most of us don't go there very much. Maybe if we yawn in the morning or if we hit our thumb with a hammer, we'll make some noise. Or yelling at a rock concert or something. But most of us live in a pretty narrow band of expression. And so rather than make a small change, I like to invite people to make a big one. And another premise is that we pretend to be someone that we're not, because
Mm.
that shakes loose our very cherished but probably way too small story about who we are. Oh, I'm an introvert, I'm a woman, I'm this, I'm that. It's like, yeah, that's fine. What else have you got? There's a bigger story for all of us all the time,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So the character can kind of help you shake out of who you think you are, and then you go out there and you go like, oh, wait a minute, I can't go back into the same story. It's too small for me. So
Mm.
so it's the voice is a practical. This is a practical application, but it's also quite transformational. You discover things maybe that have been exiled or lost along the way.
Mm.
So those are a couple of the assumptions. So, and it kind of aligns nicely to your human design stuff because each of the five voices connects or is sourced in a different part of the body. So, voila. And I use
Mm.
the chakra system, but it's, it's a body. And these are
Yep.
elements, and they kind of, they're everywhere. So each one correlates with a part of the body, and we'll make a little sound. You can join if you want,
Hmm.
or not. You're a grown woman. You can decide what you want to do. Um, so we'll have a silly version of it, and then I'll talk a little bit in that voice in my everyday speech and tell you what it's good for. So
Mm.
that's what we'll do.
Cool.
So we'll start with Earth, and that is sourced, as you might imagine, in the feet, legs, hips, genitals, butt, all the lower body.
Mm.
And to isolate and exaggerate that sound, we're going to be bears. It's
Okay.
coming on spring as we're recording this, so I'm imagining we just woke up and we're kind of itchy and hungry. Uh,
Mm. Ugh.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's very deep and dark.
Boy.
And if people are having a hard time finding it, you can just pretend, you can just voice your yawn.
Mm. Oh, that's a
Yeah.
good one.
Yeah, yeah. There's a,
Mm.
yeah, and I can feel that. Like, I feel like my body's a cello when I'm making that sound. There's all
Yeah.
this vibration down in my body.
Mm.
And so, if I take that kind of goofy sound and I bring it into how I would normally talk, this is my earth voice.
Mm.
It's not that different from my regular speaking voice because it's one of my dominant voices. Most of us
Mm.
have usually two that we kind of favor, a combination of it, and earth is one of mine.
Mm.
And it's good for lots of things, including getting really grounded. So the om and the chant in the yogic tradition, it's like that's what it is, and it does calm you down. Oh, that'll just reset your whole nervous system.
Yeah.
It's also good for projecting authority. So a lot of women, I've worked with so many women over the years, and a lot of them don't know how to get into this part of their voice.
Mm.
And it's great for like setting a boundary. No, please stop interrupting me. I'm not done talking. It's also good for training dogs, but that's a whole nother thing.
Love that.
Down, down, Billy. The dog's like, what? You talking
Yeah, they're
to
like,
somebody?
are you playing?
Yeah, yeah. And then the third thing it's good for is reconnecting us to our gut instinct.
Mm.
So in order to really access those deep, open, yawny sounds, we have to soften and deepen into our core, into our belly, our guts. And that kind of animal intelligence is always available to us, but most of us are going too fast or zipping around in our neocortex. And so I think this is not scientific at all, and I absolutely know it to be true, like
Yeah.
intuitively and from years of watching.
Yeah.
Is that if you can settle into that part of your body, that voice, that gut, that other brain will be able to connect to you, and you might make better choices.
Wow. Oh, I love that. I
Yeah.
I wonder if that's one of my dominant voices because I definitely like that. And grounding, like when you said that, I was like, oh, that makes so much sense. Like just settles really
Yeah.
well.
Yeah. Yeah.
Mm.
Yeah. So, and it's not always great because it can also be a little dull or monotone.
Mm-hmm.
I had a client I worked with years ago. I read about him in my book, and he saw himself on a video saying, I'm very passionate about the work we do." And he was, but he was an introverted white man from North Dakota,
Oh.
and so his way of looking excited looked like one step from a coma.
Oh my gosh.
And he saw it. And he was just horrified. And so he
Oh.
came to work with me, and we got him, more acquainted with other parts of his voice. But before we did, I said, "So tell me, are you the person in the room who stays calm when everyone else is kind of losing their minds. And he
Yeah.
says, yep. A little smile, like, ooh, she saw me.
Mm.
And so I'm not suggesting that we use these elements to make judgments about people. We don't need more fuel for that, but it might
Mm.
help us ask smarter questions so that
Mm.
that gift that he has in being calm and steady and grounded is great until he's trying to talk about being passionate. And then it's
Mm.
kind of silly,
Mm. And
right?
that brings us into the next one,
Which
right?
is
Of
fire.
fire.
Yes, and
Passion.
fire. Yes, fire is sourced in your belly and solar plexus.
Mm.
And you've heard the phrase fire in the belly. Well, this is all about that. It is about passion. And
Mm.
so to isolate and exaggerate this one, I think we'll just have a little call and response pasta opera. You up for that?
Okay.
Rigatoni!
Rigatoni.
Mostaccioli!
Mostaccioli.
Lasagna!
Lasagna.
Yeah, basically it's kind of yelling, right?
Okay.
Hey! It's the Tarzan yell.
Yeah.
It's all that kind of energy. And the way it sounds in my voice normally is the way I'm talking right now, because this is my dominant voice, especially when I'm presenting or teaching or in a conversation like this.
Mm.
And it's good for expressing, yes, passion. It's also really good for taking up space, for being seen and heard. Great for public speaking, right?
Yeah.
And it's also really good for waking up the body. So when we do a longer warm up, people start taking off layers. They literally get physically hot.
Yeah.
And I did about 10 minutes of Taekwondo back in the day. I didn't want to hit anyone, so I kind of ran out of steam. But I loved the yelling. Yeah! You know that?
Yeah.
Yeah. That was
Okay.
really healing for a person who was raised to be very quiet.
Wow.
To be like full extension, all my energy, all the way out. And now I actually have a lot of people do that kind of punching. I teach them just a simple punch and kia, because a lot of us are kind of noodly,
Yeah.
don't quite know how to get our energy all the way out to the other side of the room. So that's
That would
fire.
be a good one. Yeah, like especially I'm definitely imagining for people that are really quiet. I don't know. I was told when I was a kid I was too loud, so I don't know that that was ever my issue. I mean, definitely the not speaking my mind or holding back, but as far as my vocal quality. But I really like this one a lot. I like it's
Yeah,
fun
it
too.
is fun.
It's fun. Yeah.
And it can be really terrifying for people,
Yeah.
to be
Yeah.
that visible and big, and people think of it as being angry. And
Yeah.
a lot of us, I have a few triggers left. I've been working a long time, but those guys that go zipping around through traffic, and
Oh, yeah.
and I like make loud fire sounds when they're when they're doing that.
Oh, smart. It
Right,
makes
just like,
sense too, though, with the Italian even example, like Italians, they're very aggressive sounding even, like
yeah.
when they're just speaking. Isn't that a joke? I don't know if that's a stereotype, but I am Italian, so I think it's okay.
Oh, you can say it. And, no, and
But it's
it can
aggressive.
be loud in various other. I have a friend from New York City, and she talks like really loud all the time. It's loud in New York City.
Yeah. Yep.
So we can get loud for various reasons. One guy I worked with was a carpenter who worked outside, and that's how he communicated. And then he moved into an office and was supposed to supervise people and deal with upset customers.
Yeah.
Not helpful.
Yelling at them. Yelling
No,
at an upset
no, and
customer.
it wore people out, and
Yeah.
he had other choices, but he just got kind of stuck there. And we
Mm.
opened up other choices, and he had a naturally big voice. He ended up falling in love with singing as a way to kind of move of some of that energy along. And like his uncle was an opera singer, so I think he just had a naturally big voice to begin with.
Yeah.
But we gave him some other choices, one of
Yeah.
which is the next element, which is water. Water is sourced in the heart and throat area. And to isolate and exaggerate this one, well, let's see, what shall we do? I think we're going to howl like wolves.
Okay. Oh. Oh. I feel that.
You feel it? Yeah. I like to imagine that it's like the yawn feeling of the earth voice.
Mm,
Ooh, but it's higher.
yeah.
Ooh, yeah,
Ooh,
yeah,
I like that.
yeah, yeah. And
Yeah.
another person I use a lot is Julia Child.
Yeah.
You know, because she was just so wonderful. And I'm 6'2", and she was very tall also. And her beloved husband of many years called her Big Sprig, which I think is adorable. But she was such an enthusiast, you know, and a late bloomer, and gosh, I just admire her. And such a strange voice, you know,
Yeah.
to be a famous person.
Yeah.
But if I take that woo into my normal voice, how I might normally talk, this is my water voice.
Mm.
And you can hear it's a little warmer and a little more flowing and gentler. And basically, it's good for anything your heart has to say.
Mm.
So, a lot of people who are in the healing work,
Mm.
who work more intimately with people, like coaches, therapists, healers, yoga teachers, chaplains.
Mm.
When you're like with people who are having a hard time, this is
Mm.
kind of, you're making the sound right now, Hannah. You're so good.
Little imitator. No,
Well,
that makes
no, and I
sense.
think we do that sound a lot. Like if we
Yeah.
heard something hard, a lot of people put their hand on their heart and they go, oh,
Yeah.
oh no, that's so hard. Oh. So it's like, oh, it's
Wow.
the voice of the heart. So it's good for expressing empathy, compassion, affirmation. Good job. Oh, it's so good to see you. Welcome. Gosh. So it makes people feel warmly welcomed and seen and loved.
Mm.
And it's wonderful for all of those things. And it's just horrible for other things like
Yeah.
setting a boundary. Not
Yeah.
great.
Yeah.
Or public speaking, right? If you
Or
talk to
those people
people,
that talk to you all the time in that voice. It would that one be an example of like someone that kind of is like talking to you like a kid or like you're a little kid a lot?
could
Like,
be.
oh, it's so good to meet you.
That
Is
might
that
be
similar?
air.
Air. Okay.
Yeah,
Okay, we're
yeah.
almost there.
Air and water sometimes get mixed together for things. If
Okay.
they're talking to kids or babies and
Yeah.
singing lullabies and things like that, but it can
Okay.
be that way. And another kind of interesting fact that I figured out along the way is that if people make sound when they cry, this is the sound. You hear the water in that? That's water in
Yeah.
that, right? And so it's like the water is in the expression of the sadness, and it's also in the comforting.
Oh.
And
Oh,
that happens in the plant world. Like, you know,
really
the
cool.
poison ivy is right next to the thing that helps the poison ivy. Fascinating.
That's really touching. Wow.
Yeah.
I like that. Thank you. Thank you for that connection. That's really cool. Huh.
Okay, we have
Okay.
two to go. Yeah,
Metal.
you hanging in there?
Yes.
Next, we have metal.
Mm.
And metal is sourced in the eye and forehead area, the mask. And to isolate and exaggerate this, we did the wolves, so now we have to go into the feline to just make everybody happy. We're going to be cats,
Love.
irritable Siamese cats. So it's very nasal. You're such a good cat.
I have the hardest time actually as you're speaking on this. I'm remembering like I took singing lessons and I think a lot of at least from what I recall when I sing a lot of my voice is like back and I can almost get like stuck in the like back throat. And so we've done exercises and like one of the images that my singing teacher would give me is like imagine that you're like shooting it out of like either your nose or like your forehead.
Yes.
I can't do it. Like, I don't know. I feel like that one's my least easily connectable one for me is like I mean, I can scrunch my nose and I can like make it like, meow, but when I'm like using, well, yeah, I guess tell me how we would use that in voice. in
Well,
conversational speech?
it's a little goes a long way. I kind of think of it as like the
Okay.
cayenne pepper on the spice rack. So if I take that and it's more like here, it's a way to get very loud without vocal strain. So
Hmm.
I had the great gift of being my mom's caregiver for 15 years until she died at almost 95. And now and then she would lose a hearing aid. And I could go and hang out with her for an evening and I could talk like this and she could hear me just fine.
Wow.
Or if I'm in a loud, crowded place, and even last night, I was doing some song leading with a group of about 15 people, and I didn't have a mic. So I could, they're all singing, and I say, okay, one more time,
Okay.
right? Sports coaches do this all the time, especially if they're outside. All right, listen up, we're going to do another round. It's just this bright, it's the cheapest sound in the mall.
Hmm.
It takes a tiny bit of energy, air, and it makes a heck of a lot of noise.
I like that.
Yeah.
Oh,
And
it's
it is
cool.
really helpful for projecting your voice. If people get vocally tired,
Hmm.
sometimes people, if they talk in their earth voice or water voice, and they're talking a lot, and that the earth voice is expensive, takes a
Hmm.
lot of air to make any noise, and it doesn't carry.
Hmm.
And so worked with this woman who would do these 3-day trainings, and at the end, her voice would just be trashed because she was mostly water and air, earth, and
Hmm.
was trying to push and push and push. And so we worked together to help her kind of wake up a little more of her metal. It doesn't take much, but it just
Hmm.
kind of lifted it out of her throat
Hmm.
and used the holes in her head to kind of project it more simply.
Hmm.
So,
I like it. Sounds like higher, like I feel like when you start speaking that way, it's like, ooh, let me sit up.
yeah,
That's how I feel
yeah,
when I
and a
hear.
lot of places where um, there are mountains, this is how people sing.
Oh,
In the Appalachians, I am a poor wayfaring stranger. And then the Balkan women's choirs, they all have that very nasal quality.
wow.
Yodel, 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 yodel. So it's fascinating to me that when there are mountainous regions, and even country music, you might not be in the mountains, but there's big open spaces.
Yeah,
I think it's so fascinating that humans um, change their voice in response to geography, to the landscape.
that's wild.
Not well.
That's really cool. Huh.
Mm-hmm. Very
Okay,
cool.
the
All
last
right, one more,
one.
which is air. That's sourced in the crown and above.
Mm.
And for this one, I think we are just going to say hi to the pets and the babies because this is kind of how
Hello, little baby.
yeah, hi,
I
baby.
can do that one all day.
Yeah, you
That's how I
can.
talk to dogs.
Yeah, dogs, really, they're just fake
Hello.
babies.
Yep.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
When I do this in a group, I was with a group in Atlanta of leaders in this large company teaching this as a leadership tool. Comes in
Wow.
really handy as a leader
Mm.
to be able to, listen well and speak well and be flexible.
Yeah.
And so when I was teaching this, I said, okay, I'm going to count to 3, and I want you to talk to your pets or the young children in your lives. And I go 1, 2, 3, and the whole room is like, we all laugh because that's often where we go. Yeah,
Yeah.
who's a good girl? Who's a good girl? So if I take that little voice and I bring it down into how I might normally talk, this is my air voice.
Mm.
And this is a hard sell to a lot of people, serious people. But it's good for some practical things like storytelling. Let me tell you a story about that.
Mm.
It's very intriguing, right?
Mm.
And I can be talking along in my normal voice and say, I have an idea, which is very different than I have an idea.
Yeah. Wow.
I think this voice kind of wakes up the imagination, the possibilities, the infinite.
Yeah.
So it's good for those things, storytelling and possibilities. And then it's also really good for connecting to the world of spirit. I mean, even the word spirit, respiration, the wind, I mean, there's all these correlations between the breath and
Yeah.
the infinite. So this is the one I hated. Ugh, ugh, aversion. And I still can get like, ugh. I have
Mm.
a wonderful friend and I love her to pieces. She lives out in California. But she talks like this a lot. She's like a really spiritual person. And
Oh.
I know she's sincere and I absolutely love her. And I can tell I still have more healing to do because the voices that drive you a little crazy are the ones that probably have the most gifts for you.
Mm.
And this was the case for me for the air voice. I didn't think this had anything to do with a 6'2" brunette, strong, smart woman.
Yeah.
And and also it was too vulnerable. It was too
Mm.
childlike and undefended, and
Wow.
all of us had to grow up too fast. So a lot of us want to get the heck out of there.
Yeah.
And that softness and sweetness and elegance and sexiness and
Mm.
sense of wonder, it all came back and brought some really great gifts to me in
Mm.
that air voice. And now I sing with it all the time. I have
Mm.
I can hear it in my recordings and I love the fire and I love that,
Mm.
big voice thing, but it's really great, like
Mm.
I was just listening to a friend of mine sing something from Brazil, the bossa nova in Portuguese. God, that feels good to sing that.
Mm.
So super great until it isn't.
Mm.
Like all of them, right? So there you have it, the five elements: earth, fire, water, metal, air. Ta-da!
That's like a party trick, I feel like, to be able to do all of those that quickly. I mean, obviously you've been talking about them for a long time, but I really like this and I like that you bring up the point of they're all really great and really bad and depending on the situation or really inappropriate, however you want to label it. I don't like saying bad, but um depending on the situation. And I think just that and being aware of I mean there's so many tools of like, am I going into a business meeting? Do I want to sound very confident and authoritative, and what voice can I use for that? Or am I talking to a baby and I want to sound very uh, comforting? To me, that sounds like air is very comforting to me, but I also do think I speak in that way. Like again, when I've spent a lot of time around babies and animals in my life, so maybe that's why it's comforting. But do I want to sound very comforting or inspiring, or do I want to be able to really project? I mean, there's so many ways that we can just use such a simple framework in shifting just a little bit, and like it's not wild, it's not like you have to study this for years or you have to know so many things. It's just five elements. And I mean, because like you, because I'm aware of the chakra system and I'm well versed in it, it does make a lot of sense. And even just air, right? Like that's where we connect to spirit, through our crown chakra. So you can use the chakra to remind you of, oh, what's that voice again? Oh, right. It's the one to connect to the divine, to connect upward. And yeah, super cool.
Yeah, and
Inspirational.
I've tried it. I've been working with, I don't know, thousands of people over the years, and I have a friend who works a lot in the international schools where
Mm,
there are people literally from all around the world, and he's been incorporating this because they're all teachers. And
mm,
boy, you need to be able to command and connect with your students if they're
yeah.
going to learn anything. So he's been incorporating this into his teaching.
Mm,
And I interviewed him for my most recent book, Vocal Intelligence. And I said, so have you run into any cultural differences? Because he's been in the Middle East, but they're in the schools, there are people from Asia, from Europe, from all over the South America, all over the place. And he's
mm,
like, no, these are just, these are so basically human.
mm.
And
That's,
different cultures do favor different things, sort of.
yeah.
I talk differently because I was born and raised in Minnesota.
Mm,
I have that kind of. I don't have a real thick Minnesota accent like my sister-in-law. Oh my gosh, she's got like this incredible metal voice and a really thick Minnesota accent.
Yeah.
But I sound different than my friends from Boston and my friends from California and my friends from. I do sound a lot like my Canadian friends, but there's a
That's
lot of different influences.
that's one of my questions when you're going through it is our default, like you said, we kind of tend to default to one or two of them. Is that through conditioning or is that through just our innate personality, who we were born as?
Oh heavens, so many things. I
Very
sound. I
philosophical.
mean, well, really, there's physiology. I'm a tall person with a
Mm.
deep voice, and I come from tall people with deep voices. So my niece sounds so much like me, and she's also 6'2". So
Ah.
there is physiology, genealogy, all of that, and region, yes, but so often it's uh, wounds.
Mm.
Being shushed, told to move your lips in the choir. I mean, if I had a nickel for every time somebody was told to move their lips in the choir, it's like, who are these people, and why do we let them near our children, right? Oh, and then there's all of the gender stuff. If you're supposed to be a woman, you're supposed to live in the water. You're just supposed to be there for everybody all the time and not have any needs and just so there's popular culture. I've had a lot of people wanting to talk to me about the vocal fry,
Yes.
that Kardashians, I guess, kind of brought in, and it's
That
like
makes me cringe.
I know, me
That is
too.
nails on a chalkboard to me.
Yeah, and it
Ugh.
doesn't. That's not a natural way of speaking.
Yeah.
That is an assumed something.
Hmm.
So there's a lot of different things. Trauma can make people go silent or
Yeah.
small. There's just so many things and I think even genealogy, just
Mhm.
even your ancestors. We're all, the epigenetics are saying we're carrying trauma, not trauma and gifts from our ancestors. So
Yeah.
I think there's just it's quite a construction of popsicle sticks and duct tape,
Yeah.
and not generally not much on purpose. And so to deconstruct it and open it into more wholeness is so fun. And you're right, it doesn't take that long. Just all of a sudden you start thinking like, oh, what am I hearing? What am I hearing over there? Or I'm not connecting with this person. What if I try a
Mm.
little air? We all know that. We can see the eyes go dead and they start leaning back. But
Yeah.
you could just play a little bit with, oh, do you want a little fire? Okay. Now we got to engage. Oh, we got to smile. We're good to go.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Ah, I like that. I think what's cool is you can kind of decipher or explore what maybe you typically settle in, and then again, look at your audience and how can I shift my voice. I mean, they say what 80% of communication is nonverbal, and 30% of that is your tone or your vocal quality. And then it's, of course, like body language. And yes, a piece of it is what you're saying, but I like that we're kind of zoning in on the tone part of, and I would also assume that we're kind of reverse engineering of, can I use my fire voice when I'm not feeling confident to help me feel confident? Is that
Yes.
something that we do too?
Oh my gosh, so often. Yeah, and
Like your power
uh,
pose, but with your voice.
exactly. It's exactly. I was just about to say that. It's like your power pose with your voice. And so many people say, oh, but this doesn't feel authentic to me. And it's
Yeah.
like, well, get a bigger story about who you are.
Mm.
It's so we are affecting ourselves all the time. We're affecting other people, but we're also affecting our own nervous system, our own mood. And so, if people are tired or depressed, especially when I was taking care of my mom, I knew by the low of hello whether it was a good day or bad day for her,
Wow.
right? Because we're the people we know well.
Yeah.
You can say, hello, what's wrong?
Yeah. My friend said that to me today. She's like, "What's wrong?" I'm like, "Nothing. I'm just tired." But she
Yeah,
could hear it. Yeah. She could hear it.
exactly. We're leaking information all the time.
This is wild. So, one of the other things, I feel like I could just talk about this forever, but you are very cool and you do so many things. And one of the other things that I wanted to touch on before we run out of time is using your voice in connecting with the community and connecting with others. And I said this before we hit record. I think that it's always going to be such a relevant conversation topic of how can we continue to find connection in a world that can be very disconnected. I don't really want to say that we are disconnected because I think that's a choice. And I mean, we are connecting right now, even though we're not connecting in person and physically. There's still a lot of ways to connect using social media. But the voice, I think you have a really beautiful perspective on how we can use our communal sound to connect with each other. And I would love for you to share that piece of your journey.
Oh, I would love to.
Yeah.
So I've always known that people needed to sing together. And I think I
Mm-hmm.
got it through my grandfather was a soloist and a choir director in Iowa. He sang
Okay.
on the radio. He had a gorgeous voice. My mother, his daughter, was a solo singer, music major, children's church choir director, piano teacher. Um, my brother was a choir director. So I feel like I just have always known that people need to sing together.
Wow.
And I got the pleasure of good choirs like you, but I also noticed how many people didn't feel like they could sing
Mm.
in any way because they didn't read music or they weren't trained or they weren't perfect or they couldn't perform or they couldn't make their living at it. And so decades ago, I just started getting people in a room without paper to sing in the oral tradition. So here's a line, da 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 da, and then they go da 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 da. We learn it by ear. You don't have where there's no performing, there's no perfection. It's a different group every time. And I built a whole community of people who sing this way in Minneapolis, where I lived for 40 years.
Mm.
And so it grew to the point where I'd have like 50 or 60 people in a great big circle in this beautiful room in a downtown church. And then we'd use it to raise money for a good cause. I didn't take
Mm.
money for that. That was sort of my philanthropy. And I fell in love with that kind of singing and connected with other people who were doing it around and about, and still do lead that kind of singing because it's not enough just for one voice to get free. I think it's
Mm.
important for people to. There's something that can happen when we sing together. This is my second TED Talk. The first one was about the elements, and the second
Yeah.
one was about the power of oral tradition community singing. And in the room I did that in, there were about 1,000 people. And I had seen this phenomenon happen in groups of 50, 60, 100 people where I would just start a song and then I would just abdicate leadership and let the group decide when it was over.
Mm.
And every time the group would decide on a dime that it was over,
Mm.
collective decision. And I was an organizational consultant for all these years, like doing team building exercises and things like that. And I was like, I could have just had them singing because there was a way that how do 1,000 people tune in to each other,
Mm.
and it wasn't it was a hard stop. It wasn't like a dribble. It was a hard stop, and it often is a hard stop.
Mm.
And so that still has me going about what are the capacities that we have that are awakened by singing. It's been in every culture on the planet since forever. And now I have to say, it's gone quite huge in Minneapolis. I moved about an hour away in the middle of COVID, and I still go there. I was there last night, but there is a whole movement of singing resistance because of the occupation of ICE there for the last couple of months.
Yeah.
And a whole bunch of my friends, singing friends, have created this singing resistance movement that's now going global. They have a toolkit and guidebook and trainings for people who can be pod leaders. And I was doing one of those trainings last night. There's a couple women from Minneapolis who said, yeah, we just put the word out and we can have 200 people show up and sing in the park.
Is
And
that
this is in
wild?
the deep winter in Minnesota. And I'm like, I could not have imagined in my wildest dreams that what I was doing all those years of just gathering people would explode. And it's been happening, this singing, oral tradition singing movement has been cooking around,
Wow.
these singing camps, and people have been doing this and making a lot of beautiful songs. But I could never, I think their little signal group was up to like 7,000 people and growing,
Wow.
just in the Twin Cities metropolitan
Yeah.
area. So it's beautiful to see. There was a whole group walking down the streets where people were shut in their houses because they were afraid to leave. And they'd
Mm.
been shut in for weeks and weeks. And so there they all are. It's like stupid below zero outside. And there were like 600 people walking through these neighborhoods singing,
Mm.
hold on, hold on, dear ones, here comes the dawn. In beautiful harmony. This is a song by my friend Heidi Wilson, and it's become one of the kind of anthems of this movement. So it's been quite something to see that
Mm.
uh, huge outgrowth and appetite to sing
Mm.
together for some reason besides standing up in front of a group and doing it perfectly, which I think is great.
Mm.
But there's something purposeful about
Mm.
getting a group of 2,000 people together and singing for an evening and raising $70,000 in rent relief for people who haven't been able to go to work.
I can't imagine. My small connection is when I sang in high school and I sang in like the select choir, and I remember this one. I don't know why I have this memory. Maybe it was the last concert that I did is the memory, but just in general of singing, creating something absolutely touching and beautiful and like soul crushing with people that I mean you come to love in a choir. But I remember we sang, I don't even know what song it was, but it was a very hard vocally um created song. Like it was, my select choir was pretty small, so we basically all were singing our own part. So if you're familiar with choir, like you can have soprano, alto, bass, but you can also have soprano one, soprano two, alto one, alto two. So this song was all of them. It's like an 8-part harmony, and we worked so hard and we sang it in a church, and like there was a lot of dissonant chords, so like the ones that kind of feel like like and then they have to resolve, like it was just one of the most beautiful songs. And it's still like talking about it right now, it gives me goosebumps. So singing collectively, that's, I mean, that's my connection is that I have in my life, is having that connection of your voices coming together and making something beautiful. And you're right, it doesn't have to be perfect and it doesn't have to be vocally challenging, and everyone can be singing the same notes. And it's really just about creating, like you're creating something with people. And I can't imagine, I would love to do something that you're explaining, like that you are sharing, because the idea of creating something so beautiful with people that you don't even know, and like
Right.
having that heart connection for the same cause with people that you might not even ever speak to. I mean, 7,000 people or 200 people, even, like, how
Right.
are you ever going to talk to those 200 people? Such a beautiful way. I mean, just talking about it, I feel connected
Yeah.
to the whole cause, like such a beautiful way to connect with and get out of your own head.
Right.
Get out of your
Right.
own head, get out of your own life, and just get into. I think your voice singing does bring you into your body. Like
It
you're
does.
just very present. What note am I singing right now? What lyrics am I supposed to be singing? And you get out of like, ugh, we all live so much in our heads, right?
Right. Right.
It's
And
an
it's beautiful to
opportunity.
watch what happens. My
Yeah.
nephew and I, my nephew's trained in my work. I have about 75 people trained in my work so far, and more all the
Wow.
time. But my nephew and I lead a weekend voice retreat here in my little town. We're doing one
Oh.
in April. And um, we are definitely going to take a before and after picture. And we do a lot of stuff with the elements, extended range vocalizing. He's done a lot of like circle singing, like what Bobby McFerrin does, improvise,
Mm.
composing in the moment. So we do a
Mm.
lot of that. We play, we move our bodies, we sing a lot of these kinds of simple or less simple songs, depending on
Mm.
who's there. And by the time we are done, I look at those pictures over all the years. Like before he and I did it, my voice teacher from France, Charles Ryan, would come.
Oh.
We taught together for over 20 years. And um, but the people just get like, if I don't see auras, but it's like there are some shiny, shiny people by the
Wow.
end of that
Yeah.
weekend of just being deeply human and expressing all of our humanity, not just the like nice made for public consumption. We
Right.
get we get into shadowy,
Yeah.
animal shrieking, carrying on, and it's all playful. Um,
Yeah.
but boy, it's just, and then I also see that in the way people are after singing. Even last
Yeah.
night, just for 2 hours, we did this little
Yeah.
training, and oh my gosh, people were, we had to practically kick them out the door because they were all in love. They all just had all fallen in love with each other, and
Oh
we
my
made
God.
harmonies. And, I like a song that if you don't know anything, harmony is heaven to me.
Yeah.
It really is. I think that feeling of being held, like you described it so
Yeah.
beautifully, being in that, I don't know, it's like you're in this hologram of
Mm.
sound, and you're a part of it, and you're different, and you're a part of it, and you're different, it's
Mm.
a whole, and all the things. But to teach a song that has like, okay, here's one part. If you like it, go over there. Here's another part. If you like it, go over
Mm.
there. You don't have to know about harmony, and you can
Mm.
still experience it. And
Mm.
so
Mm.
fun, so
Mm.
fun. Yeah.
Sign me up for that weekend. Speaking of, tell people how they can connect with you. I know that you do a retreat as well. I don't know if that's the weekend that you were just sharing, but how can people continue to connect with you? How can people learn more? Maybe if they're interested in exploring their own voice, what are your offerings?
Oh, I have a bunch of things on my website. I'm
Cool.
in development now of a self-directed course for the 5 elements. That'll be coming out in the
Fun.
next couple of months because I have people in different parts of the world. To get
Hmm.
them. I do a live full voice fundamentals class that's coming up at the end of March. I don't know when this is going to air, but
Yep.
that's I do those pretty
Soon.
regularly. It's a 5 week online live thing to go
Fun.
more in depth with the 5 elements. I do a different bunch of different retreats. I'm getting ready to go to Mexico for a singing retreat that I do every March,
Okay.
and self-expression. It's not like singing, but it's yeah, a lot of singing. And then I also have been doing these retreats that I really like called Living, Dying, Music, and Mystery. So
Hmm.
I've had a little comfort choir. We sing for people who are near the end of life and have just been around a lot of death and dying. And so I'm doing one of those at Kirkridge this fall in Pennsylvania, Kirkridge Center, and then another one at the Whidbey Institute in Washington. But all this stuff is on my website. Um,
Very cool.
so best way to get in touch with me. I also work one-on-one with people. So,
Mm.
and I'd
Yeah.
love to hear. If you have a question or a story, I'm all over it. Reach out. I'd love to hear from any of your listeners because
Yeah.
everybody's got a good story.
Ah, everyone. Yeah, and it's important to be able to share your story, and I appreciate that about your work is unlocking this new invitation of being able to share your uniqueness, your story, your journey, your voice, your tone, whatever your message is. So I love that. I would love to invite you to share what we talked about before we recorded. Is that what you're talking about actually with, I would call it looping, but you used a different terminology, but you gave me a short demo of your beautiful song. Is this something that you do in your retreat? And remind me what you call it.
This is a little song. It's a little community song. I like to teach
Community
it. I
song.
have a looper because I'm only one voice, but
Yeah.
so I'm using my looper. But mostly, I compose it. I actually composed it last fall in my retreat with my nephew. I got this
Ah.
idea. It's like, hey, here's a little groove. Why don't you sing this? So
Oh.
I'm gonna lay it on you.
Yes,
So,
lay it on us.
but usually I do it in a group, but
Okay.
We like a looper because then we don't need to go
Yes.
get it going.
Makes sense.
Uh, your voice is a wonder. Your voice is a wonder. Your voice is a wonder. Is a wonder. Your voice 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 is a wonder. Is a wonder. Your voice is a wonder. Making breath into sound. Your voice 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 making breath into sound. 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 Your voice is a wonder. Your voice is a wonder. Your voice is a wonder. Is a wonder.
I love that. I love a good loop pedal. I don't know, I'm obsessed with it, but I can imagine I love any yeah, like call and response kind of loopy song. I think that's it must just be something about my personality, like having your part become one of a whole, and then you're making this beautiful masterpiece together, and it's just you are singing one part, and you need
Yeah, yeah.
people, you need the
And
other voices.
the thing is that I'm so excited. I just cut you off. I'm so sorry.
No, you're good. You're good.
I say this often that this kind of community singing teaches us everything we need to know about being in a community.
Wow.
Because yes, you have to do your part. You
Yeah.
know, you have to step up and take responsibility for your voice. And then if you're with a subgroup, you know, then you need to like, oh, I need to like serve, I need to be a good team member here. So I'm going to, you know, do right by my people. But then you also have to attend to the whole. And when I was the organizational consultant, I would often teach people around and say, if you don't want to sing, that's fine. You can go over there and provide acoustics. That's fine. But most of the time, I was kind of irresistible. And I'd say, so, you know, and it would happen again and again that the tribes, the individual teams in the round would get kind of go off. You know, they'd get too loud or they'd get kind of tribal and they would, like that rhythm would get off and they'd forget they were part of a whole, which happens all the time in
Wow.
organizations, families, communities, the world, period. And so it's like, this is what it's like. It's me, we, whole. Me, we, whole. Me, we, whole. And then I always invite them after we get it, you know, if we get it, we'd always get it going. And then I'd say, okay, now we're going to start it again. Now let's make it beautiful.
Mm.
And do you know what, Hannah? They always did. And
Mm.
they didn't talk about like what that meant. We didn't have to get the flip chart out and make lists. I just say, okay, now make it beautiful. And there was something innately human that they knew how to do that.
Mm.
So
Mm.
your voice is a wonder.
Mm. Thank you so much for this conversation. My heart is just so full. This was so inspirational and empowering, and gives you so many things to think about with, I mean, so many, like I teach breath work, right? And people are always like, oh, I breathe the wrong way. I know I breathe the wrong way. Like it's just bringing attention to something that we do every day, and you don't do it the wrong way. You're just learning new pieces of how you can approach your breath or your voice. And that's a really, really empowering tool that you're bringing to the world. So thank you for your beautiful tools and your beautiful energy and your wisdom. And thank you for sharing your voice with us today. I appreciate you so
Oh, Anna,
much.
it was a blast, and you're my people.
So fun.
I think we care a lot about the same things. So it was a
Yeah.
joy. Thank you for inviting me.
Mm.